mistakes. I just make my case. I'm on in the morning. I own my phone and I'm always in the zone. Need a zone, out of zone, and then we can get it poppin'. Pick the topic if you want it. Skip it, shine it, skip it, happen. Took these sports and made them pass it. All right, undisputed.
Welcome to Undisputed. We're live from Los Angeles. I'm Joy Taylor here with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Joy.
I'm sorry, I just can't help myself. How about them Cowboys? I just had to do it today. I just couldn't stop myself.
I got Cowboys colors on today.
I got my Cowboys.
First of all, Skip,
metallic blue.
they haven't played since Sunday. They don't play again until another 3 days.
Yeah.
Come on.
Come on, man.
No, ain't no come on, man. Keep on talking about them Cowboys.
You have no choice. They are making your life more miserable by the day.
Admit it, you're coming around to the Cowboys a little bit.
Come on, Jerry. How about Jerry? How about Jerry?
Let's start it off with the red hot Cowboys. Dallas has won 8 games in a row and hosts the 5-4 Ravens on Sunday in Jerry's world. The Cowboys have never beaten the Ravens, going 0-4 against them in franchise history. Skip,
Yes?
who do you like on Sunday?
Never.
This is going to be a shock to everyone out there. First of all, I still believe with all my heart and soul that Dak Prescott has to win this game, this Sunday at Jerry World, to keep his job and keep Tony Romo, now dressed fully in pads and helmet, on the sideline. We will discuss that more deeply in just a moment. Now back to Sunday's game. I believe this will be Dak Prescott's toughest test yet, because this time he will not have Ezekiel Elliott helping him out nearly as much against this Baltimore Ravens defense. But I believe that Dak Prescott will prevail in the fourth quarter once again in this game, but do so barely, just as he did at Pittsburgh last Sunday. This is why. This Baltimore Ravens team, the harder I look at it, it is a dangerously strange and almost inexplicably bizarre football team. Because Baltimore is now 5-4, but Baltimore has played 9 close games. Baltimore had chances to win all 4 that Baltimore lost. Baltimore led the Jets 10-0, and somehow, I don't know what happened. Geno got hurt, Fitzpatrick came in, and they lost 24-16, and that's their widest margin of losing, was 8 points. So still a very good, veteran, tough-minded defensive football team. Number 1 in yards allowed. Number 3, tied for 3rd in points allowed. Number 1 against the rush. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at the point spread, my Cowboys by 7, I'm saying, what? You're kidding me. Dallas has covered, as we all know, 8 straight point spreads, as well as winning 8 straight games. It's pretty great. I don't think they can cover 7 in this game. I think Baltimore will go in there as they did once upon a time. This is before your time, but I can't wait to ask Ray Lewis about this night. Do you remember the last night at Texas Stadium, the night they closed the stadium and asked 100 alums to come back? Mm-hmm. Ray Lewis and company, this is a little after your time in Baltimore, went into Texas Stadium that night as the underdog, sort of the homecoming opponent, if you will, and just humiliated Jerry Jones and company on a national Saturday night stage in December. And I think the Ravens are spoiling my man Terrell Suggs. I'm sure he's watching right now. Hey, T-Sizzle, we've had our battles before, but this is exactly the kind of game this veterans Ravens defense loves to go in and spoil the party at Jerry World. So let's look at this defense. Ezekiel obviously leading the league in rushing. Baltimore allows 71 yards a game rushing, and I don't think Zeke will get more. I'll give him 80 in this game. This Baltimore defense is hard to score on, as I said, tied for 3rd in points allowed. I'll give Dallas that they allow 17.8 points a game. I'm going to give Dallas 20 in this game. I'm going to say that Dallas pulls it out 20-17 because without much Zeke, Dak has to make the plays in the quarter, which is the fourth quarter. So I say he rises and shines again with Tony Romo continuing to look over his shoulder. We know that Tony conceded the job, but that was all Tony's doing. Jerry didn't ask him to do it. He actually just did it on his own. Jason Garrett didn't ask Tony to concede to Dak Prescott. Right. No, he just did it on his own on Tuesday, the off day. Thank you, Tony. Appreciated that. Came straight from the heart. But I'm not buying it from the owner or the head coach. And again, I'm told that Jason Garrett is as pro Tony Romo as the owner continues to be. So they're waiting for their opening. They're waiting for their excuse. They're waiting for Dak to have the one big rookie game that inevitably any rookie does. It could come against this defense, which I think is spoiling to take Dak Prescott to school this Sunday. And it is highly capable of doing just that. If they can take Zeke away and turn Dak into just a pocket passer, you might say, boy, you got a shot there. I think very close game. I think it'll be your basic ugly game to watch. I don't think there'll be much pretty about it. It'll be grinded out for my Cowboys. I think Mike Wallace might get deep for one big touchdown pass. I think Steve Smith might get deep for another one. But they're not going to score more than 17 because the quarterback is still Joe Flacco, not Joe Flacco. I'm sorry, but Joe Flacco has thrown 9 touchdown passes to 9 interceptions. Joe Flacco is 26th in QBR in the National Football League out of the 32 qualifying quarterbacks. So I'm going to stick with Dak 20, Flacco 17, and Dak Prescott gets my Cowboys to 9-1 and saves his job once again.
Well, you look at the Ravens defensively, they remind you, or Seattle, they remind their mirror images of each other. They are a very, very prideful bunch of guys.
Yes, they are.
And it doesn't matter how well they're playing offensively, that defense will always show up. T. Sizzle, as you mentioned, Tim Jernigan, C.J. Mosley, they are a prideful group of guys that started with Ray Lewis in the late 90s.
Yep.
With Ed Reed, Suggs was also there. Those two guys have moved on, and now Sizzle has those guys playing really well. You mentioned they are the number 1 rush defense. They've given up 69 total yards running the ball the last 2 ball games. Number 1 in total D, 5th in takeaways. And that's what you're going to have to do. And the thing that I love about Dean Pease and most good defensive coordinators, they find a way to take away what you do really well. And as good as Dak Prescott, as great as Dak Prescott is playing, Ezekiel Elliott is the guy that you need to take away. You need to force them to be in, instead of 3rd and short, 31 to 3 is what teams would consider short, have them 3rd and 5 or longer. You need to take the element of the run away. Force Dak Prescott, because we have yet to see him throw the football when he has to. And now I'm not talking about the last thing of the drive, because everybody knows if you're down by 2 or 3 points, you're going to have to throw the football. But I'm talking about early in the ball game. You need to be able to dictate to Dak, you must throw the football here. There's no possible way we're going to allow Zeke to pick up a first down on 8 yards. Force him into those type of throws and then see what happens. I love, you know what I love most about the Ravens is their 2 receivers, because I went to a fight once and a football game broke out with Steve Smith, because you know he's feisty.
Hey, I know him well.
That's my guy.
And I saw him at last year's Super Bowl. He obviously wasn't playing, but he came up and literally picked me up off the ground and bear hugged me. He is a strong little man.
Oh, and he doesn't take any stuff from anyone. Nobody. Doesn't matter how small, doesn't matter how big, he will come to play. And Mike Wallace have seemed to found a resurgence. He never quite fit in Miami because they didn't use him how Pittsburgh used him, and that was to throw the ball deep. He never really found a home in Minnesota because that's not Teddy Bridgewater's strength, throwing the football down the field. He's come back to Baltimore. They get the ball in his hands in space, and hence the 95-yard touchdown a couple of weeks ago. He still can get over the top. He still has blazing speed. I'm going with the upset, Skip Bayless. They have the lead late in the ball game, but the most clutch kicker in football, Tucker, for the Baltimore Ravens, kicks a field goal from 43 yards away, and the Baltimore Ravens win 22-20.
22-20, except that you have one misconception there. Dan Bailey's the clutchest kicker in pro football. Tucker might be the longest clutch kicker occasionally in pro football, but when it's just time to make that 45-yarder, that 50-yarder, my money is on my guy.
Like that 60-yarder that he hit on that Monday night against Detroit, Tucker? That Tucker? The one that he kicked in overtime against in Denver? In 2012, that Tucker? Oh, yeah.
The Dan Bailey, who should have had a chance from 58 yards to beat the Giants on opening day at Jerry World.
You still there?
Thank you, Terrence Williams, for that. You're still in my doghouse over that, but it's okay. Still 8-1.
No, I like the Ravens. I'm telling you, the Ravens will bring the physicality. I love this matchup because we know what the Cowboys are. They're an offensive line-driven football team. They do a great job of opening holes for Ezekiel. They do a great job in pass protection for Dak. But with the physicality, I'm really anxious to see that matchup with Sizzle and Tyron Smith, because that's going to be the determining factor. He's going to have to get home. Going to have to hit him a bunch. Going to have to take him down a couple of times. They stop the run, and they win this ball game 22-20 on a late field goal by Tucker.
Remember, my man T. Sizzle playing with a torn biceps tendon, which makes you basically a one-armed man, as Manny Pacquiao was against Floyd Mayweather Jr., fighting with one arm tied behind his back. So Sizzle can get loose, but can he get a hold of a big, strong, poised Dak Prescott and get him on the ground? I think not.
Why do you think not?
Because he can't tackle. You know, it's the JPP syndrome. For a different reason, JPP can't get two hands on you and pull you down.
And that's what Floyd said. If I just hit you hard enough, I don't need to put both hands on you. Just one of them would do.
Floyd only needs 2 feet because he can run. And that's all he did against Manny Pacquiao. But to start the show, Joyce said, you're starting to see the light. You're starting to come around on my Cowboys. And yet, once again, you've stepped in it. Once again, when I gave you the opening to at least put one toe up on the bandwagon, no, you backed off and you said, oh, maybe the Ravens. You keep wishing and hoping that somebody will prove you right, and you're going to be proved wrong again.
Do you understand that I'm unscrewing the lug nuts on the wagon? Mm-hmm. Well, me and Jerry. You know, I still have Jerry on my side. Mm-hmm. He hasn't said anything. That was, as you mentioned, that was Tony Romo's decision.
It was.
Jason Garrett didn't say anything.
No,
that was Tony Romo's decision.
Correct.
Well, he did say that he thinks he has to win this game, too, to keep his job.
He did.
Oh, okay.
He's thought that all along. There are certain people in sports that you learn not to bet against. Dak Prescott is teaching you not to bet against him, and he'll teach you again this Sunday.
What about Jerry? Jerry, don't you let Skip Bayless off the hook. Don't you make Skip Bayless out of a liar.
There's one way Dak keeps Jerry out of the equation. You can't keep him from winning football games. I told you he may have to go 15-1 to keep his job until the playoffs, but he's got a chance to go 15-1.
Let me tell you what's going to happen. Jerry's going to tell Jason, you need to make sure Tony get 50% of those first team snaps.
I think that happened. I read this week that they did share first. I don't know if it's 50-50, but it was probably like 60-40 this week.
I heard now. I don't know how true it is, but it was mentioned that they put an extra period in so Tony can get some extras.
Sure.
So I'm thinking Jerry's calling down hey, I need Tony to get like 50-50 a year. Mm-hmm. Jason.
They got to have him.
You're going to be, Skip, when this happens, you're going to be coming in every day. I can't believe Jerry would undermine his own good intentions.
I don't think he'll say he can't believe it. We've been talking about it enough.
I've been saying it, but what I will be surprised at is if the Ravens beat Dak Prescott.
You won't be, don't be surprised.
No, I won't. I'll be shocked.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to call you. Mm-hmm. I will send you a nice little, hey,
I don't even want to know.
The little waving emoji.
But let's stay with the Cowboys.
Have I sent you any gloat text yet?
No, you haven't.
No, he saves it all for you.
8 reasons to gloat and not once, because I don't gloat.
Really?
Except on this show.
Oh, exactly. Okay,
the
exactly.
Cowboys. After Dallas hosts Baltimore, they have a quick turnaround on Thanksgiving at home against the Redskins. Skip, how will this play out for the Cowboys?
Again, if Dak loses and has a stinker, and we saw him have a 3.5 quarter stinker against the Eagles, if you recall, and yet he turned it around and pulled it out of the fire. But if he has a 4-quarter stinker and they lose even a close game, I believe that Tony Romo will be thrown back into the fire in which he got burned a year ago on Thanksgiving Day at Jerry World against the red-hot Carolina Panthers, a game that I thought Tony Romo, who had already come back from injury to win at the Dolphins, sorry about that, the week before. I guess it happens a lot now, right? But then I thought that Tony was in sync enough that he could come back against Josh Norman and company, and I picked, on my former show, Dallas to win that game. And Josh Norman gloat texted me after the game. He actually called me out to the media after the game. Oh, so you thought, yeah, okay. And by the way, Tony Romo in that game was abysmal. Barely threw for 100 yards, no TDs, and 3 picks in that game, including 2 pick sixes. So would Jerry dare to throw him back into the psychological fire the last game that Tony started, which was last year on Thanksgiving, on the biggest stage in the sport, according to Jerry Jones? This is his stage, man, that late afternoon Thanksgiving game. Yep. Everybody's usually finished with their turkey, and most people are captive audience to watch my Dallas Cowboys. But there might be too short of a turnaround. So let's just do the hypothetical. If they do lose Sunday Is it possible Tony's just not quite ready for Thanksgiving Day turnaround, which is on short rest, obviously? Maybe. But for sure, if Dak lost, and you got two dangerous opponents now, you do have the Ravens, as we just discussed, but you got your arch rivals who won at Jerry World a year ago against Tony Romo also. He got hurt in that game. Two bad games. And the arch rivals are dangerous. They can win there. They love to win there. RG3 took him to school there in his rookie year. So my point is, maybe Dak could keep his job just on short turnaround, but for sure, if he lost two games in a row, he is out for the rest of the year. It just depends on if they think Tony Romo, and I don't have any inside info on this, is he completely ready? Did he get enough first-team snaps to be ready to turn around on Thursday? My gut says yes, they would throw him back into the fire in which he got burned a year ago.
Could Romo get his job back if the Cowboys lose either of the next two games? I'm going to say no, because I think he's played well enough to earn more wiggle room than what you're suggesting that he might receive. And plus, I think if Tony Romo had not come out and said what he said on Tuesday, I probably would have agreed with your idea or premise that this could possibly happen. Now, I don't put anything past Jerry. I really don't.
I don't either.
But I'm willing to. I think Tony's saying that, look, the guy should not have to worry about looking over his shoulder. He's played well enough to lead this football team, and we are a team. It's something special here, and I don't want to be a distraction. I don't want to be an interruption of what could possibly happen. So, no, Skip, I don't think so. And I think they're going to lose on Sunday. I have yet to determine whether or not they'll lose Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay, let's do your hypothetical because you're obviously leaning that direction. If they lose twice in whatever it is, 4 days.
4 days.
Then what happens?
Then you have 10 days before your next game.
No, it's actually they play a Thursday night game at Minnesota.
So it'd be a week. So basically
the mini bye comes after the next Thursday.
Okay, yeah. So then, no, I think he's done enough. From what I've seen from Dak Prescott, the likelihood of he put together back-to-back bad games, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he'll be the reason why they lose either of these games. I think it's going to be more Baltimore than Dak Prescott, and I think that's what you're going to have to look at. If he plays well and they lose. Mm-hmm. I think he's fine. The problem is if he plays bad. I mean, what do you say? He's had a bad quarter or two, but over a 9-game stretch. I mean, we've seen even some of the great quarterbacks struggle for entirety of games.
I thought he was awful for 3.5 quarters against Philly. Just awful.
Well, he made some uncharacteristic mistakes because we haven't seen him do that. I thought he tried to force the ball a couple of times, and that got him in trouble. Mm-hmm. As long as he's going through his progressions, the guy's open, I give him the football. I'm not worried about trying to get Dez this X many targets. I'm not trying to get Dez this many catches. Hey, Cole Beasley's open, I'm throwing the ball to Cole Beasley. Is Jason Witten's open, I'm throwing the ball to Jason Witten. It doesn't matter. As long as he's going through his progressions and where his reads takes him, he gives the football up. Got no problem with that. I don't see him having 2 back-to-back bad games, Skip. I don't think I think the thing is for the Ravens is to make him be a passer. Remove Zeke from the equation because when you give them a run-pass option, they're impossible to beat. If you allow Dak to throw for 250 and no turnovers, and you let Zeke run for another 125, 150 with 2 to 3 touchdowns, you're not beating anybody like that. I don't care who your defense is.
But clearly, you have already picked the Ravens to win this game.
Yes.
And it sounds like you're leaning toward the Redskins to win the next game. And I'm going to go on record right here, right now. There is no way Dak Prescott keeps his job if they lose 2 in a row. It would be right on time with 5 games left, plenty of time, to put the Pro Bowl, box office, high-risk, high-reward quarterback back in the starting lineup. I promise you, it's all Jerry has wanted to do. He said 2 weeks ago, the regret quote, remember this? Yep. I would regret it if we did not win a Super Bowl with Tony Romo here. He bet Valley Ranch. He bet his football pride on Tony Romo in 2013 with a $108 million deal against conventional wisdom. When most Cowboy fans said, "What are you doing, Jerry?" He went so far out on that limb that this is a pride issue for him. And for him to have, by your potential scenario, an 8-3 team with 5 games left, There is no way he wouldn't put Romo back into the equation, hoping that 8-3 is good enough to launch us into home playoff games if we close the deal. And their schedule's pretty easy. They get the Bucks and Lions at home later.
Right.
So if they close out, who knows with how much home field advantage, but maybe enough to get Seattle to come there for the NFC Championship game, and you could have Romo at quarterback in Jerry Jones' eyes, he would be the happiest man on earth. And I promise you, it would be Tony's team for the last 5 games and whatever after that.
I know I feel real comfortable picking against them on Sunday because I like what the Ravens represent on defense. Flacco doesn't have to be the playoff Joe Flacco. He just can't commit the costly turnover. And so that's why I'm picking this game to be close 22-20 for the Ravens. But I'm not worried about Thanksgiving. I think he plays well, but Ezekiel Elliott is the engine that makes this car run. And if they can shut that engine down, I like the Ravens' chances.
Well, we'll find out on Sunday at Jerry's World, and they're going for their 9th straight win, which is something they've never done in a single season in franchise history.
And I can't have you crying for like a week straight.
Coming up, Floyd Mayweather says he's made enough money in his career. He doesn't have to fight anymore. Do Skip and Shannon believe him? Go debate that.
I'm going to say that.
No mercy, no mercy, no mercy, and I won't back down.
Pacquiao's fight against Jesse Vargas earlier this month, but don't expect a Mayweather-Pacquiao rematch. Yesterday, Mayweather said he doesn't need to fight Pacquiao or anyone else. Mayweather said a lot of fighters in the sport of boxing may want to retire, but they have to fight because they have to, said Mayweather, wearing a dark shades and a polka dot suit. I don't have to fight. I just made $300 million for fighting Pacquiao. I'm okay. Like I said before, I'm happy with my position once again. The money doesn't make me. I make money. I'm well off. I make smart moves. And like I said before, I'm happy with where my career has gone. Shannon, do you believe Floyd Mayweather?
How can you defend your man this day?
I absolutely believe that he's happy and content with where his career has taken him. The 49-0 record, the 5-time champion in different weight classes. But I believe if the money was right, he would take a fight. It's as simple as in sports or in business or anything. If it makes dollars, it makes sense with an S and with a C. And if Pacquiao was on the table for $150 million, $250 million, he's taking that fight. He's right. He doesn't need any more money. He doesn't need any less either. And if somebody's going to come and say, okay, this is what we have for you to fight Manny Pacquiao, or we got $300, $400 million for you to fight Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather's putting gloves back on. He's going to fight again, Skip. Now, I get it. I keep saying fight. He is a boxer, and maybe his style is not pleasing. You'll never confuse him or any of his fights with Hagler Hearns or Ali Frazier or Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns. Yes.
Now you're speaking truth, finally.
Absolutely, Skip. But he goes into a fight with a game plan. And where fighters get in trouble is that they go into the ring with a game plan, and then all of a sudden they get hit, things are not going their way, and they get outside of their game plan. No one has forced Floyd Mayweather in 49 career professional fights to leave his game plan. He says, this is what I'm going to do. I am a counterpuncher. I'm going to get in my defensive stance, and when you try to touch me, I'm going to touch you twice. And that's what he's been able to do. It doesn't look good, Skip, because if you go in and you spend the kind of money that it takes to witness a Floyd fight in person, you're like, I want to see some action. I want to see some toe-to-toe. I want to see somebody get dropped. I want to see some blood. I want to see some cuts. Well, that's probably not what you're going to get because he is a technician. He's a tactician. And he's not going to put himself in harm's way to please one Mr. Skip Bayless or anyone else that would like to see him get punched in his face and take a knee or get counted out or all of a sudden it's 49-1. That's not going to happen, Skip. So if you go to watch Floyd Mayweather box, you know what you're going to get. If I go see Tom Cruise in a movie, I already know what I'm going to get. I'm going to get action. I don't expect an Oscar. I don't expect that when I go see one of his movies. I expect action. And when you go see Floyd Mayweather fight, you know what you're going to get. A defensive fighter that's a counterpuncher, and when you try and touch him once or twice, he's going to touch you 3 or 4 times. That's just the way it is, Skip. Don't get mad at him because he beat your boy Manny Pacquiao. And he'll
with
beat
one arm tied behind his back with a torn rotator cuff. So all you got, Floyd?
So he
really?
says.
You just summed up beautifully, perfectly, eloquently why UFC has taken over the sport of boxing, why it's left boxing in the dust. And the great Dana White, I'm going to paraphrase the quote we read yesterday, that Conor McGregor puts you to sleep with his fists, Floyd puts you to sleep with his style. And he always has. I lose respect for Floyd by the fight. I still call him the best defensive fighter ever, but it's almost like an oxymoronic term because they don't really go, because we want to see offense. We want to see action. And as a young reporter covering boxing, I was always taught that the aggressor wins the round. That's what I, from day one, the ABCs of judging a fight, the aggressor wins the round. So eye testing, even this last Pacquiao Mayweather, where I knew Manny had a torn rotator cuff, I still thought Manny was the aggressor in every round. Floyd ran and he ran and he ran, he jabbed and he ran, he jabbed and he ran. And that's the way he operates out of the ring also. He jabs from a distance, then he runs. And I just lose respect for him because he's better than this. Like at some point, he needs to take a stand, even as he approaches 40 years of age, to put that exclamation point on his legacy that's not there. I think people have lost respect as Mayweather has built up his undefeated resume because you just keep watching the fight saying, he does what? He makes you miss?
Yep.
Is that it?
Yep.
That's what he is? He makes you miss.
Yep.
Got the greatest, quickest head in boxing. You know, he's doing that. Got the shoulder roll, okay?
Throw a punch and see what happens to you. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You already know.
Okay, I got it. And I have some respect for that. But in the end, I lose respect for even from a distance when you take shots at Conor McGregor and you minimalize him as an ant versus an elephant, right? Even though you made the great point, ants, they torment elephants, right? But still, hey, if you're
It's
going
science,
to call,
Shannon.
it's science. That's from Anchor.
And that's what Floyd is. The sweet science of boxing, Floyd Mayweather has mastered
It
it.
is the sweet science.
Yeah.
You go into the ring. It's your job.
He's sweet. I'll give you that. He's the sweetest, Floyd.
Hey, it's not his job.
Yeah.
It's your job to make him fight. He has what you want, the belts. You want them, come take them.
Okay, but I don't even like his attitude out of the ring because he takes his little pot shot from a distance against Conor. He calls him an ant.
Yep.
But he apparently is not willing to try to step on the ant in a boxing ring, not in the octagon. Conor's saying, okay, if you want to fight a real fight, real raw street fight, the way we fight, I'll put the gloves on. You call it, you name the rules. I'll put those gloves on and I'll still kick your behind. And I believe he would kick Floyd's behind as he nears forward. I do. The more I think about it, the more I like it. This is the baddest man on the planet. He is a crazy you-know-what, but he is crazy great. You would have to kill him to knock him out. And I'm going to tell you again, Floyd Mayweather Jr. has not knocked out one human being in a professional fight for 17 years, and I do not count Victor Ortiz. It was a sucker punch knockout.
Hold up. What about Ricky Hatton? Does that count?
No, not as a. I'm talking about not a TKO. It's a KO. It's Justin Juco. May 22nd, 1999. When was that? Come on, Floyd.
If they stop the fight, what difference does it make if it's a TKO or?
I'm talking about
KO?
cold cocking somebody.
Skip.
Boom.
Make it stop. That's what he told. That's what he. When Floyd started putting these bees on people, it's like, make it stop, ref. Make it
And
stop. I
don't
don't
bring
want
up
it anymore.
Ricky Hatton. I mean, Pacquiao just punished Ricky Hatton. It was a joke.
And
Ricky
the guy
Hatton's a nice kid, but he didn't belong in the ring with either of those.
Okay, and the guy that cold cocked Manny Pacquiao, Floyd took him to school for 12 straight rounds.
That was the fourth time he had fought him. The fourth time Manny was forced because Floyd kept running from him. He fought him a fourth time, and he just got bored with it. And he's winning the fight. What was in the sixth round? And he's looking around thinking, he'll never fight me. Floyd will never fight. Boom! He got caught one time, and he went down. Got put to sleep.
You notice? Floyd never has that problem. Floyd never lose sight of what's going on in the ring. He's like, I got this bum. That's what he called everybody, from Pacquiao to Zab Judah to De La Hoya to Sugar Shane Mosley to Castillo. All of them was bums. He made them look bad. You talk about he fought tomato cans.
Yeah.
That's what he made them look like.
All of them tomato cans.
Step up.
And now he's called Conor McGregor an ant. and he's threatened and he's jealous
And
of Conor
Florida's
McGregor.
aardvark.
Conor McGregor has taken over the world, not just in America. Conor McGregor has become a global icon in the sport of combat, physical
Yeah.
hand-to-hand combat. It's Conor McGregor, and Floyd is fading into the shadows. And if he wants to rise and shine and put that big exclamation point on the end of his resume, he would say, okay, let's do it. Because you want to talk about money? And by the way, if I could quote the great Tex Schramm, who was the founder of my Dallas Cowboys, the architect, he once told me when I said, well, he's got enough money. Tex Schramm said, nobody ever has enough money.
Nope.
I don't think Floyd, in his heart of hearts, has enough money, even after he made $300 million. There's some part of Floyd thinking, wait a second, he could make another $300 million against Conor McGregor. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Because the big money fight's not Pacquiao, it's Conor McGregor. Because the world is yawning at the Pacquiao-Mayweather. It would do okay, but it wouldn't be a fourth of what this could generate.
First
all right?
of all, he called Conor McGregor an ant. And you know what love ants? An aardvark.
Big bad aardvark.
Floyd, aardvark, Mayweather would eat him up. You
what?
know that, Skip.
That Floyd is as far from an aardvark as
Eat
you
him
can
up.
get.
I cannot
Eat him
believe
up, Skip.
we've said aardvark 4 times in
You
the show
mad.
already.
You are upset because you keep throwing everybody. Okay, Zab Judah's going to beat him. De La Hoya's going to beat him. Shane Mosley's going to beat him. Berto's going to beat him.
I never said
Pacquiao
any
gonna
of
beat
that.
him.
I said Pacquiao would beat him.
Pacquiao beat
And he
nothing.
tore his rotator cuff 3 weeks before the fight, and you're taking glory in that? Really?
You know what else?
You're impressed?
You know what else got tore up? His butt. Because Floyd tore it up right in the ring. Every time he throw a punch, he hit him side his head. Wow.
Pacquiao looked like he'd been to a party after the fight.
You know what? You know what I
did.
noticed? You keep
He
telling
could have fought again. They could have gone 12 more rounds. Pacquiao was fine. Like, what?
You keep telling me that that Floyd can't punch. He can't knock. Why don't people?
I don't tell you. The record tells you.
49-0. That's what it says.
17 years since you knocked a man out? What?
49-0. Why don't people? Why?
That's
why,
Floyd.
Can you tell me why
There you
fighters?
go.
Why don't fighters walk through his punches? Why would he hit from
Through
their
him,
back up?
he doesn't punch him. He jabs and runs.
Okay,
jabs and runs.
Walk through him.
Runs a marathon. You can't catch the man.
Hey, they follow him around. They follow him around, get punched in their face.
Oh, Lord.
Skip, you already know how this thing gonna end if he fights Pacquiao. You know how
Pacquiao.
You know how it will end if he fights Conor McGregor.
You know, Pacquiao looked pretty good the other night in his fight.
Everybody,
Two Saturdays
everybody
ago?
looks good until they have to get in the ring with Mayweather.
No.
Everybody.
I thought
looks good.
Pacquiao looked pretty good against Mayweather.
I tell you what, I know what would happen if Conor McGregor got in that ring.
I do too. Floyd would get hit and he would get hurt. Pretty boy Floyd's face would be bleeding by the 12th round.
Conor McGregor is hitting guys in the UFC. That's not boxers by nature. That's not their only trade.
I think they're more boxers by nature than you give them credit for.
That's why they.
You know what?
That's why they're in the,
It's bare knuckle fighting.
that's why they're in the MMA.
No, they're in the MMA because that's where the action is, where the money
Ain't
is.
no money in MMA.
It is. It's exploding. Boxing's
I'm
lost.
just still stuck on the aardvark.
Because Skip don't want Floyd to eat him up. He's gonna be hurt.
Aardvarks. Next up, Russell Westbrook had the ball with under 7 seconds left, and the Thunder, instead of holding the ball, Westbrook drove to the basket and dunked it. Westbrook finished with 30 points in the Thunder win. Skip, what does this say about Westbrook?
First of all, I think by June we may look back at this left-handed slam that iced this game. It might just be the play of the year in the National Basketball Association. Yet, that outrageously spectacular left-handed slam was exactly why Kevin Durant is no longer Russell Westbrook's teammate, because it was a wrong-headed play. It was ill-advised. It was the wrong play at the wrong time in a dicey, close game after Oklahoma City had lost 4 in a row and at home was up 103-100. This is exactly the kind of Russell Westbrook solo mission that drove Kevin Durant crazy. And I have been ahead of this story for 5 years. I've talked about it on my old show relentlessly. Kevin Durant would get mad at me for talking about it, but I'm going to bring it up again because Kevin Durant is a basketball player. He was schooled correctly. He was coached and tutored correctly coming up. If Kevin Durant wanted to average 10 assists a night, I believe he could, because he's a very skilled, I'll even go to gifted passer of the basketball. Kevin Durant can be unselfish in the flow of a team, and the reason he chose Golden State is they do play unselfish, move the basketball. In this case, with 12 seconds left, Oklahoma City has the ball up 3. And this kid, Alex Abrines, goes on a Westbrook special solo mission of his own, fumbling, stumbling, bumbling toward the basket, and missed an ill-advised layup. Ball's free, up in the air. It looked like Houston had controlled the ball and was going to get a shot to go the other way and tie the game. Out of bounds, but it was off a rocket. They had to go look at the videotape. And all of a sudden, Oklahoma City gets to inbound the ball with 7.9 seconds left. So what's the correct basketball play here? You're up 3 with 7 seconds left. What should you do? You should inbound the ball to your best free throw shooter, Russell Westbrook, and he should cover the basketball up and make them, with 5 seconds left, foul him and send him to the line for 2 free throws. And all Russell Westbrook would have conventional game-clinching play is make 1 free throw out of 2. A 4-point game, would that stand up with 5 seconds left? I think it would have. It would take a minor miracle to pull it out for the Rockets at that point. But what does Russ do? Curls off a pick, takes the inbounds pass, sees a little opening, and he just can't help himself. See basket, attack basket.
Yep.
And then Russell switches hands in midair as he's challenged by Clint Capella, who's no small guy, to the left hand, and he starts losing the ball in his left hand. It came free for a second. He has to kind of try to re-catch it, re-grip it as he's going up toward the rim, and he did. And he slammed it. It was as nasty a slam as you will ever see. It was posterizing poor Clint Capella. It was as spectacularly an athletic play as you will ever see in an NBA game. It took my breath away. Only Russ could pull that play off. And it's wrong place, wrong time, right guy. This is who he is. That summed him up. It was so Russell Westbrook. And it was still the kind of play that would leave Durant standing over on the wing saying, what are you doing? Yet they won the basketball game. And I think they're going to win enough basketball games to be the 4th seed in the playoffs. And I believe Russell Westbrook's going to be the MVP. And I still give him a shot to average a triple-double. He fell a little short in the rebound category last night. But I thought he won the quote-unquote early season MVP duel with James Harden. And in the end, this was his night, his play, his trademark. And somewhere this morning, Kevin Durant saying, I told you so. And Kevin Durant is very happy, and Russell Westbrook is happier without Kevin Durant.
Skip, in sports, 90% of the time, decisions will not get you in trouble. 100% of the time, indecision will. And that's why that play was successful for Russell Westbrook.
Because he had no doubt.
Once he got that ball, as you could see, the Houston defender came to foul him, but he was gone. He's like, no. I also think because he had missed the free throw earlier with about 28 seconds left in the ball.
He made the second one.
He says, you know what? I don't want to go to the free throw line. I'm going to the rack.
That's LeBron-esque.
I'm going to the rack. Because here's what happens, Skip. Sometimes you can do the right thing at the wrong time.
You can.
And this is what, and people are going to look at this and say, well, what he should have done. And what greats do is that they do things that the normal person say, this is what you should have done, but they don't think like a normal person do. You think, like, get the basketball, cover it up, let them foul. You go to the free throw line. You're 80 plus, 85, 90% free throw shooter.
If you had been coaching, wouldn't you have coached that play? Wouldn't you set it in the huddle?
Yeah, but not when you have great players. You let him, LeBron, and KD go make a play. And I'm going to trust him because who else? Who else would you want to have the ball from OKC other than this guy? And you got to live.
Now it's not even close. Like, it's not even debatable.
And now you have to be willing to live with whatever decision he makes, good or bad.
You do?
And that's Skip. My high school coach would say, son, he who hesitates is beat. If he'd have
I
paused.
always heard he who hesitates is lost, but go ahead.
Well, see, you was hesitating. That's why I beat you all the time in these debates. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, that's delusional. But go ahead.
Skip, I don't have a problem with what he did. I believe in him, and you must be willing to accept the good, also the bad. And you know some of that's going to come. You know, as the volume shooter that he is, the assist man that he is, the rebound man that he is, he's also a turnover machine also. But you have to be willing to accept all that.
He had 6 last night, but so did James Harden.
Every decision that he makes won't be 100% correct. But I'm willing to live with it because I believe I know for a fact, watching him play, he's giving me everything he has on every possession. There are no wasted possessions with him as far as effort. And I'm willing to live and die with whatever decision he makes. And I get Kevin Durant, probably got fed up with it. He wanted to go where he was more part of a team and the ball always was moving. I get all that. But KD's not there now. Yep. And they have to rely solely on Russell to put them in the right position, score a bunch of points, get them a bunch of assists, and rebound the basketball. Because if he doesn't do those things, they're not winning. I don't believe they can win a game. It's hard for me to believe that they can win a game with him averaging less than 30 points for the season.
Probably true.
So he's going to have to be close to a triple-double in order for them to have a chance to win the ball game.
He's capable.
But in this case, to do what he did, it shows his fearlessness to go, says, you know what? Not only am I going, I'm going and I'm challenging 6'10" Clint Capella. And guess what? You lose, Capella. Now get on this poster. Everybody in Oklahoma City, next game, they're going to have Russell dunking over Capella for the game winner. I have no problem with what he did, Skip, because I'm going to live and die by what he decides to do, because I know without him, we have no chance of winning. So, hey, go to the rack.
Russell plays the way he dresses. He does not care what any of us think about his ensembles on a nightly basis. Am I right?
You absolutely correct.
Some of them I love and some of them I'm not so sure about. Where did you come up with that? He does not care. He is a fearless dresser and a fearless basketball player. I would rather have Kevin on my team. I would rather watch Russell because he is a holy terror on a nightly basis. I'm never sure exactly what he's going to try to pull off, but he plays with relentless energy. That's what I respect the most about him. Nobody plays harder, more possessions. Every possession is life or death to Russell, or it looks like it is. It's like the last possession of his life. And I appreciate that. But Kevin had his 30 last night, too, at Toronto. He was sensational. And they're starting to get into a flow with him and Steph. And I'm not sure Clay's in the flow
Clay's
yet.
still not in the flow.
No, but it's starting to work. And Kevin made the right move, and I think Russell thinks that Kevin made the right move, too, because he's happier. It's his stage now. He's got the town. He's got the team. He is unbridled because he doesn't have to worry about Kevin over on the wing saying, remember me?
Well, it's the same thing in Houston. James Harden. James Harden is a one-man band.
Yep.
Russell is a one-man band. And you're not going to win a championship with a one-man band.
No, you're not.
You need a collection. You need what they have in Golden State, or you need what they have in San Antonio or in Cleveland. Those for me over the next 3 years, next 3 to 5 years, I don't see anybody other than those three franchises winning a title, because nobody has that kind of firepower. Nobody has what Golden State has. No one has what San Antonio or Cleveland has. So if you don't have those, you got one or two. How are you going to beat a team with three?
Oklahoma City does have one X factor that was highly impressive and didn't get enough credit last night. Andre Robertson. He did a number on James Harden in the fourth quarter. James scored 2 in the fourth quarter with 2 turnovers because Robertson can lock you up. And he locked him up and down all through the fourth quarter last night. James just had a hard time.
Go to the basket. Russell, do not listen to Skip Bayless. You go to the rack with authority. Dunk it on them. Do whatever you got to do.
Break all the rules.
Break all the rules.
Yeah, usually when you do something that's not conventional, we say, if you miss that, we're having a different conversation.
No.
But I don't feel that way about this. I think it's just, that's who Russell is. That's how he plays. So if he missed
I must say, if he had missed it and they had gone down and made it 3-1 in overtime, you would have heard it from me right here, right now.
Yeah, but wouldn't you expect this from Russell, though?
I do.
This is how he plays.
So you shouldn't be surprised. But anything that he does is for
No. This is Russell.
I'm the first to say, it is highly entertaining.
It's great. He's electric. Coming up, does Ray Lewis think his Ravens will upset the Cowboys on Sunday? We'll ask him next.
Hold up, wait, it's time to skip all the other stuff and
Host the 5-4 Ravens on Sunday. The Cowboys have never beaten the Ravens, going 0-4 against them in franchise history. We're joined by 2-time Super Bowl champ Ray Lewis. Ray, welcome back.
Thank you, guys.
Looking sharp today.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Like that.
Let's talk about your former team, the Ravens.
No, he got you today. I'm sorry, he got you. It's okay. Just once you have to admit it.
I come over here and say, you know what? I'm gonna come on like my homeboy Skip. We on the home team now. I said I'm gonna be like Skip today.
No tie?
Like, oh, we got you today.
Yeah, but you dressed down. He dressed up.
Yeah, I know.
Way up.
I'm trying to be like you, Skip.
Okay, you got it.
Never again, though. I learned my lesson.
I think you guys all look very sharp today.
Thank you,
man.
Joy.
How good do you think the Ravens are right now?
Oh, wow. I think, when you think about a team, they're going to have to, they're still trying to figure out offensively what the identity is over there. But I think when you really think about what the team is built on, it's always been built on defense. I think it will always be built on defense. It's really interesting. I've always been close with Dean Pease, who is probably one of the best defensive coordinators I think I've ever been. Just the knowledge on how he prepares these guys and the things that he thinks of. So you think about what the Baltimore Ravens are doing defensively, I don't think people really understand their numbers, right? So I get a call the other day. If you think about their total defense, they're number one. Third down percentage, they're number one. Rushing defense, they're number one. Rushing per carry, they're number one. First down per average, they're number one. 3 and outs for us, they're number one. With a tie. Interceptions, they're number 2. That's the Baltimore Ravens defense right now. It's still with a 5-4 record, right? And you think about sometimes the inconsistency of the offensive side of the ball, but I think if you can get them in a dogfight, which they're most of the time always in a rough dogfight, then they can find a way to pull something out. But I think the Ravens are going to have a tough task this week dealing with the Cowboys. It's really, you think about Ezekiel Elliott and what he's done from the rushing side of things, number 1 rusher in the NFL, coming against the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. When I was playing, when you heard those numbers, you always said something has to give. And this week, something has to give. So I'm really looking forward to this game.
So what he just described was the good old days of 2000, except you did have a Shannon Sharp who could make one play. You just needed one play,
We just
right?
needed one
Big play, Shay?
Yeah. Right? But this team might need a couple of plays
Yeah.
a game. And Joe Flacco, whom I sometimes refer to as Fluco,
Yeah.
he hasn't had that kind of year
Right.
to make a couple of plays.
Right.
He makes one or, he'll get Mike Wallace loose every once in
Yeah.
a while. Steve Smith,
right.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just think, once again, if you think about what their ability is, it's that big play ability. That if they get the ball, if they just stretch Mike Wallace down the field, that's going to be a mismatch or a foot race. Steve Smith one-on-one in the slot dealing with whoever that third corner is. If you find those mismatches, you're going to really have a real chance. But one of the key matchups is going to come out of this game is the front seven, right? With what they do in the front seven with Sizzle and now with this boy Elliott, how he jump cuts, right? Is one of the things about defense. If you don't, we watched it against Pittsburgh the other night. If you don't play sound defense, if you don't get up under a block when you should get up under a block, he skips cut and he jumps out of the hole. And that's what I think makes him so unique as a runner. We haven't seen like this type of explosion from a running back. Why? Because the running back position has been taken out of the game. Everything is about passing. You're not letting them touch the ball 25, 30, 35 times.
So does Suggs always stay in his lane?
I tell you one thing about him. When you piss him off enough and you let him know what type of talent and what type of challenge it is,
Right.
he responds. And I think in this game, them knowing what they have to do, which is stop the run. Now look, you're going against probably the best offensive line in football. So now you have a way to measure up with all of these numbers, saying, can we back all of these numbers up? I think they have a good chance going down there to do it this week. I've always liked purple, and that's just who I am. So
The thing that I love most about football is man against man.
yes, sir.
You're trying to move a man against his will. We lining up. We trying to push you back.
Yeah.
You lining up. You trying to come forward. Some got to give.
Okay.
So all on the board. All the Ravens see when they walk by, Ezekiel Elliott got over 1,000 yards. The third guy, the third most yards in his first 9 games to start a career. That's all they see.
Yep.
Ezekiel Elliott, MVP contention. Dak Prescott, MVP contention. Like, wait a minute.
Right. Here we go.
They barely mentioned. I know our record's 5-4. I know we don't. We're not. Where we want to be.
Yeah.
But as I told Skip earlier, this is a prideful bunch.
Yes, sir.
And when you play on that side of the football, when you coming in and you put on that black and purple, There's a pride factor.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't matter what transpires on the offensive side of the football. It doesn't matter who we play. We are the Baltimore Ravens defense. And we play that regardless of who we play against. Now, tell you what's going to happen. They're going to get on that bus, Suggs and Jernigan and C.J. Mosley and Williams. They're going to get on that bus, and they say, all they talking about is Zach Martin. All they talking about is Fredericks. All they talking about is Tyron Smith and how they can do this and how they can do that. Watch what they do to Zeke.
I told you, he ain't getting no 100 yards against this group.
Yeah, it's going. Look, man, I'm telling you, when you watch this group closely, and as they're starting to put it together, the linebacker core alone, just like C.J. Mosley, where he's come from the moment he came into this league, everybody understanding his ability on what he's able to do. But now him actually becoming that leader in the middle of that defense. If you watch the way he puts everything together, they're playing this way. Now, look, you get people talking about their record is this and that, and they didn't play this people. I don't care what their record is. I told you, men and women lie, but numbers don't, right? And when you get into numbers, there are harsh numbers in between the gaps, and me and him know this, right? So we used to come down, we used to say, how many third downs do people get on us? Because if you're number one in third downs, that means you're getting off the field, right? Which means that's going to be a problem for anybody to sustain drives, right? One of Dallas' biggest accomplishments this year is sustaining drives because they can find them 5, 6 ugly yards.
Well, that's Skip's biggest thing because they average 10 to 11 plays per drive. If you get that many drives, you're normally going to end up with points. Be it 7 or 3.
Absolutely.
So as many times you can get 3 and out, now you minimize the offensive opportunity to score points. And that's going to be at a premium because I don't believe, the Ravens don't have the most efficient or proficient offense. So they're going to have to get X amount of chances, but they're going to have to stay on the field because if they keep going 3 and out, the Cowboys' offensive line will wear them down. Because those are some big bodies, and they start leaning on you. And if you notice Zeke, like in the Pittsburgh game, he had like 60, 70 yards going into the fourth quarter. But
Deep into the fourth.
But one run with a 30 on the goalpost. So that's what you have to do if you're the Ravens. You must sustain drives because you do not want them worrying on your defense because if you hammer something long enough, it'll break.
It'll break. And see, and when you think about one of the biggest plays of that game was that screen play that he went almost 90 yards. 83 yards. If you watch that play, if 23, what's the safety for Pittsburgh?
Mike Mitchell.
If he gets over the top and make this guy come back inside, it's a totally different ball game. But he goes behind that guy, and then Zeke is a sprinter. He ran track. The 100 yards is what he does. And now he's out of the gate. And that's what I think when you start to watch defense, you ask yourself, what does team defense look like? If he gets in front of that and makes him cut back, that's probably a 15-yard game, and it's not a 90-yard game. And that's one thing when you watch the Ravens play over the history of what the Ravens playing, team defense is always the most important thing in your minds. Always get the ball turned back inside. Really physical game.
I'm so happy we have this man here and you also, because what I respect the most about the purple, as you call it, what I fear the most as a Cowboy fan this Sunday is the legacy that you built and left in that locker room for John Harbaugh on the defensive side and Dean Pease. There's a legacy, there's a tradition, there's a feeling of dominance on the defensive side of the ball that you left. And never have I seen it better demonstrated than the last time Baltimore went to Dallas. And it was the last night of Texas Stadium. It was December 20th of 2008, and you were there. And they were closing down. God's building had the hole in the roof so God could watch his Cowboys, right?
Oh, boy.
And all the alumni came back. Over 100 former Cowboy greats were there, celebrated at halftime. And you guys were chosen as the homecoming foe, so to speak,
they chose us the year before. That's really
they chose you for this, right? So take it from there.
See, it's funny because the week before that game, Coach came in and he said, guess what? Like, they chose you guys for this game. Like, they said, we're going to play the Baltimore Ravens on that day. And I'm like, really? Because I think we're the wrong team that you want to choose for this type of homecoming. Because, you think about it, you can choose anybody you want to choose, but when you choose somebody who always plays pissed off anyway, but then the way that we took it personally, that now you wanted to close this stadium with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay. So when Coach left, I never forget, I kept the defense in there. I said, we're going to rewrite history in a different way. We will always be remembered for shutting down Cowboys Stadium. So,
And by the way, Dallas was 9-5 going into that game. So it wasn't this.
No.
You were the underdog going into this game.
Right.
And my man Tony Romo had 2 touchdown passes, but he also threw 2 picks.
Yeah, buzzsaw.
Right?
Yeah,
it
he
was
ran
a
into
buzzsaw game, and the Ravens upset the Dallas Cowboys, upset them in many ways.
Yeah, I ain't never lost to the Cowboys.
Is that right?
Yep. We
Yeah,
played them in 2000 when they had Emmett and Troy.
Yeah.
And it was
Kind of the
In Baltimore.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty, Skip.
44, we put up 44
No,
on them.
27-0.
20.
They might have had like 120 yards.
Right.
It wasn't pretty, Skip.
It wasn't
This
pretty.
night was 33-24. That's how you close
Yeah.
Texas Stadium.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this group this year would like to
I
go
think
in
they-
and spoil the party.
I think
right?
they got a chip on their shoulders. You
Yeah.
know, you think about the games that they've been in. You watch them, what they did to Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago, and now you watch this team kind of trying to build momentum, right? Because they're in a division that nobody.
very winnable.
I mean, wow. I mean, you know, they have Cincinnati twice. They have Pittsburgh one more time in Pittsburgh. If you just split those, you come out of the AFC North as the champion, and you buy a berth into the playoffs. So I think they have much more to play for.
Well, like you said, something's got to give.
Yeah.
Well, Ezekiel Elliott is going to be a part of that. And coming up, Ezekiel Elliott is now the favorite to win the NFL MVP. So we'll get Skip, Shannon, and Ray's MVP picks next. This is followed by Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, and Russell Wilson. Ray Lewis is still with us. Ray, who would get your MVP vote?
Oh, you know what, Joy? Yesterday now, I went out there and said about Dak.
You sure did.
I know.
Then you slept on it, right?
I did. I don't even know how I picked the quarterback, Skip. I just don't know how I picked the quarterback. But I will tell you this, seriously. I went back and I watched these numbers, Shay. I'm talking about real numbers. And now, since the running back is really gone missing from the game, right? I was in a division with Ada George, Jerome Bears, Corey Dillon, Fred Taylor. So I saw some quality running backs. But when you talk about what Ezekiel Elliott is doing on the same team as Dak Prescott, when you talk about what makes Dak so comfortable, is that the same thing made Troy Aikman comfortable. I can turn around and hand the ball to Emmitt Smith, right? And so when you think about the numbers, we're talking about since 1983, what Eric Dickerson done that year, right? 1,808 yards rushing. That's a lot of yards rushing. But when you think about what Ezekiel has done through 9 games, this young kid is not only changing, you know, when you think about what yards and numbers, that's one thing. 9 rushing TDs, 1 receiving, you know, averaging 5.1 yards, you know, rushing the ball, leads the NFL in rushing. Got the best team in it, the team leading the league right now, 8-1. And when you think about what all of that means, I think when you think about what makes Dallas, from the history of Dallas, Tony Dorsett, you can go to Emmitt Smith. You can go historically with that franchise to say, who's that next bell cow? And when you talk about what this kid is able to do, look, I think when you talk about Tom Brady, yeah, of course, coming back and playing his butt off, and Matt Ryan, you know, sometimes he's up and down. You know, you talk about Carr. Russell Wilson goes into New England and pull off that victory the other night. I mean, I'm talking about impressive, you know, but certain guys, Russell and Brady, can always be up for the MVP. I'm just saying, it's just the standard that they play at. But when we talk about historical numbers, when we're talking about seeing things that we used to pay attention to, but now we usually don't, I think this kid should be one of the front runners up for the MVP, simply because I think he's one of the biggest reasons that the Dallas Cowboys is 8-1 right now.
You want to go? Go ahead, Skip.
No. I want to hear your Cowboy hate.
Whoa, Skip. Skip, I'm really not a hater. You know what? It's funny how Tom Brady loses one game and all of a sudden he went from being the betting favorite to now he's what, like second or third, maybe
Well, you
third
had
or fourth.
4 cracks inside the 5, and you didn't convert. Right?
I took Russell Wilson for the simple fact is
Well, you're reaching for that one, but it's okay.
okay.
Go ahead. It's okay.
the man has the 30th rushing attack in football.
Mm-hmm.
They're spending on all their offensive linemen. They're spending $9 million.
Right.
There are 13 offensive linemen that have a bigger cap number than the entire Seattle Seahawks offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know Russell Wilson has battled a high ankle sprain, a knee injury, and he just did what no one thought could be done. He went into New England where Tom Brady does not normally lose in November and December. And he beat them.
Depends on who you ask. But okay.
Yeah, that's a good comeback,
Oh,
by the way.
If you asking
How
me, I
about
love it.
January?
Oh, I love it too. They already know what I do. They already know when I come to town, I have the red phone just in case.
I knew he was going to
Just
go
in
there.
case.
Hey.
But Skip, you have to and don't look now. Everybody keeps talking about Dallas, but guess who's the number 2 seed? The number 2 seed in the NFC is the Seattle Seahawks.
Seahawks.
And the only reason, because this is not the same defense. They're normally a top 5 defense.
Yeah.
They're like 9, 10 in a lot of different
They
categories.
haven't had Cam. They haven't had Michael Bennett.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when you can't run the football, and they said, okay, Russell, we need you to be Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Great. Every game from here out, because that's the only way they can win. And a lot of his wins have come in the last couple of weeks from throwing from the pocket. That's really not what he is. He's a guy that can move, get you a couple of first downs with his legs, throw well on the move, but he's been basically between the tackles, throwing the football. I'm giving it to Russell, because I think Dak, they benefit each other.
No, Shay, you
That-
cannot.
That's the reason why Emmett won the MVP and not Troy. But Troy was a big thing. When Troy wasn't in there, look how Emmett didn't look like the same guy.
Right. If this boy goes and break Eric Dickerson records, which he's on pace to break
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, it's gonna be
I was
close.
7 years old in 1983.
Yeah.
7.
I remember it. I was a little older than that though, but I remember. I remember when he did. I remember when he broke the record. That was also the year Dan Marino threw for 5,084 and was the MVP.
Absolutely.
And he was the offensive player of the year.
Absolutely.
But I remember.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Skip. Let's hear some of your cowboy love, cowboy lover.
If Jerry Jones is watching us right now, and he may be, he's nodding his head saying, yep, you're right and you're right, because this is exactly Jerry Jones' mentality about Dak Prescott. Yeah, it's 9 games, but oh no, I'm not completely sold on him. And it seems like the world continues to want to discredit Dak Prescott because he is unspectacularly spectacular to me. That's just me.
Yeah.
You can't argue with the 8-1.
Nope.
You can't argue with the second best QBR in pro football. You just can't. But here's what you really can't argue with, and I mentioned this yesterday. Mike Sando did a terrific piece on ESPN.com. You earlier had some potent stats about that Ravens defense, so give me just a second to run through some stats on Dak Prescott in QBR, my favorite stat, since the stat was invented in 2006 against all rookie quarterbacks, and that includes Andrew Luck and Cam Newton and RG3 and Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan, all of them. You can take them all. There are 27 starters over those years that he's compared Dak to. Dak is leading all of them in every category.
Yeah.
It's unspectacularly spectacular. Nobody's talking about this, but he's completed 67% of his passes, 14 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions against an additional defensive back. They even have it broken down in second level stats. In QBR, he's thrown 7 touchdown passes to only 1 interception, and against extra DBs, he's rushed 11 times for 90 yards, and they have been significant, timely, key play yards.
Big first downs. Yep.
Then on longer passes, and you had issues with him earlier. Can he throw it long? Can he throw it more than 5 yards to Measly Beasley or to Jason Witten, who's at the end of his line now? He can barely run. Longer passes, 15-plus yards down the field. Dak ranks number 1 of all those quarterbacks so far in QBR, all those that preceded him, all those other rookie quarterbacks. He's 24 for 45, 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions on longer passes, 15 yards plus. And those 5 touchdown passes came not one of with the benefit of play action. They were all just pure drop back.
Yeah.
All 5 of them. And we saw one on 3rd and 11 to Des Bryant at Pittsburgh, which I thought was a spectacular, game-changing kind of a throw. So Dallas still first in time of possession, which keeps the average defense off the field. First, as you brought it up, time per drive. It's 4 minutes and 30 seconds per drive. Now, Baltimore might have something to say about that.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that. But so far through 9 games, he leads the league in time per drive, plays per drive, however you want to look at it. And this is my case closer. Last year with that same offensive line, Without Tony Romo, they went 1-11, and they had McFadden, who was a decent guy. He's not this kid, but he got his 1,000. He was solid last year. This year, obviously, without Tony Romo, 8-1, 1-11 to 8-1. That's all I need to know. And here's my bottom line. To me, and you can say I have no objectivity, but maybe I'm the only one with objectivity on this point. I think that Dak should be leading the MVP race just the way Lamar Jackson is leading the Heisman race, and most people say it's over for Lamar. I say that Dak has at least as big a lead in this MVP race in the NFL. That's how.
Well, I think you got to look. I told you I'm Dak. I like Dak. I like Dak a lot. I like Dak for the MVP. But when you think about what Elliott is doing, but I want you to think about the historical move for the Dallas Cowboys, right? If you have two MVP conversations coming from Dak and Zeke, right? So I was a part of a historical move from Ozzie Newsome in 1996 that picked Jonathan Ogden fourth and drafted me 26. Now you go and draft Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott in the same draft.
So the other way around.
But the other way around.
High.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's
right.
exactly the other way around. And so now you have 10 years, an easy 10-year window of what this looks like. So what I'm telling you consistently, what makes Ezekiel Elliott, just me watching the Dallas Cowboys, is because what he does is he gives Dak a comfort, a blanket. Let me take the pressure off of you.
There's some truth to that.
Yeah.
But what's the hardest position to play in sports? It's the quarterback.
Yeah.
And you have to have the play at the moment. And they were in trouble. They were in trouble at San Francisco. They were down 14-0. You said, can he throw from the pocket? Remember, Eric Mangini sat here and said, boy, that San Francisco defense at home, it's going to be tough on him. And he brought them back from 14-0 down. He stunk it up for 3.5 quarters against the Eagles. And when the money was on the table, he was money, man. In his last two drives and then at Pittsburgh.
But here's the thing, though, Skip. When you give all those numbers, and I'm not trying to discredit anything that Mike Sando had written in that article, but Dak is the only guy that had a guy like Zeke in his backfield in this type of offensive line. Look at what Matt Ryan had in Atlanta. Because normally when you go that high, you don't have a whole lot of anything. The cupboard is bare. When you pick first in the draft, your cupboard is really bare. Absolutely. Because nobody is one player away from going from first to, like, in the playoffs. Now, it can happen sometime, but for the most part, you're not one player away. He has 3 first-round draft picks, high draft picks on the offensive line. He got the number 4 pick in the draft at a tailback, and he has a top 5, 6, 7 wide receiver. So he fell into a situation that was very unique. I'm not sure that any other player, quarterback in the history of the game, has had a situation quite like this.
I remind you, they were 4-12 last year. And you say, well, they had all this talent and it all came back. But the mentality was a loser mentality that this kid changed their culture. He with his poise and his maturity and the way he handled himself, the defense rose up and said, we can do this now.
I'm with you. But it's if I didn't live this, I'm telling you, I get it. Quarterbacks, I understand it totally. But I watched what Jamal Lewis was able to do.
It was just so different. But your defense was it might have been the greatest defense ever.
But
it's running the.
How about my perspective? What about Terrell Davis?
Same thing.
I saw it up because I saw John Elway go 3 Super Bowls
and couldn't win one.
Couldn't win nothing
until Terrell Davis came in.
And
John was in the winter of his career, right? He was approaching retirement.
What made us so great is that once people realized, like, hold on, we got to stop the running game.
Yeah.
But then they failed to realize that's still John Elway throwing the football. Right. So you had to pick your poison. And I think moving forward, that's what you're going to have to do. If we stop Zeke and if Dak can continue to grow, that's the problem that you're going to have for the next 4 or 5 years. Because if you stop Zeke and Dak continues to improve throwing the football, Dallas Cowboys stumbled upon a dynasty.
Absolutely, because you cannot put 8 men in a box against Zeke. Because now you got Dez Bryant one-on-one outside.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure your Ravens this Sunday will force him to beat them from the pocket because they will take most of Zeke away, not all of him.
Which means one-on-one with Dez and Jimmy Smith.
Okay. And Jimmy didn't practice yesterday, I think, so he might. I don't know. They ain't looking good for the. He'll
play. You know he's going to play.
It ain't
know
looking
he's
good for the
gonna
Bills.
It'll be all right.
It'll be a good matchup. Ray, thanks so much for joining
Absolutely.
us.
Way to go.
Thank you, guys.
Coming up, apparently Tony Romo wanted to keep his job before stepping aside. Skip Shannon and Michael Lombardi will react to that next.
Debate, I don't make mistakes, I just make my case. Drop mic when I'm done. One more pen, I say not like. Turn my tongue, I don't like the taste. I'm on in the morning, I own my opponent. I'm always in the zone, need a zone, out of zone, and then we can get it poppin'. Pick the topic if you want to skip and Shannon, skip the happen. Took these sports and made them say, all right, undisputed.
An emotional Tony Romo said earlier this week that Dak Prescott earned the right to be the Cowboys quarterback. Now, a report from Monday Morning Quarterback says Romo went to team officials last week and asked for a chance to compete with Prescott for the starting job in practice. Stephen Jones said Tony's smart, he's very bright, and so when he came out and said it in the end, I don't think it took him long to figure that it wouldn't be a great thing for the team. We've got a good thing, and no one wants Dak looking over his shoulder. We've got supreme confidence that Dak is our future. We're joined by former NFL GM Michael Lombardi. Michael, welcome.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, Michael.
What's your reaction to this?
Well, on Monday, I said I thought Tony would realize this, and I thought Tony would say this. Now, the man to my left here, the counselor, that's sharp, he'd be. But I think they can't have a 7-on-7 scrimmage during the week to see who should be the starting quarterback. So the deck was stacked against him in terms of the way Dak has played. So I think that was a futile attempt to say, hey, can I compete? The answer is no. Then I'm going to do what's the best interest. And for me, this is why I love Tony Romo. This is why I'm a Tony Romo fan, because he proved he has mental toughness. Mental toughness is doing what's right for the team when it doesn't happen to be right for you. And that's what Tony Romo did. He doesn't like it. He wants to compete, but I think he did the right thing.
I'm not a big guy that says I told you so.
I didn't
really
say I told you so. I said
Mike.
I discussed this on Monday. You disagreed. I didn't say it.
I'm not a guy that says I told you so. We had a topic. Jerry Jones says Tony Romo is very, very happy for Dak Prescott and his success. I sat up here and told Skip Bayless that's a bold, barefaced lie. I say he might have started out as being happy when he went 1-1, but then 2-1, 3-1, 5-1, 6-1. I said, oh no, because he knows, because he sees what's on the horizon. Because every time he normally left the lineup, the Cowboys, when he came back, they would rise. Now he leaves the lineup and they're steady ascending. I also told you, Jerry Jones, I said he was cowardly not to go ahead and name Dak the starting quarterback. Come to find out, this had been brewing. So he knew this. Jerry knew. And he could have easily prevented Tony Romo. Tony Romo should not have had to fall on this sword, Michael Lombardi. You know that. The head coach, should always chart the course and the plan of action moving forward. Stephen Jones said Dak Prescott is the future. Tony Romo can see that. So if Tony can see it, couldn't Jerry Jones see it? Couldn't Jason Garrett see it?
Well, Jason Garrett happens to be his best friend. I mean, Tony and Jason are extremely close.
Thank you for saying that. That is
They're
a
extremely
fact.
close. So I can't imagine if you're that close and Tony and Jason standing in front of that team, partly because of Tony Romo.
Yeah.
And there's a debt to be paid for that.
That is correct.
Okay, so I think he owes it to Tony in some conversation before it got this far to say, look, it's going to be hard for us to put you back in the game. I have to think that happened. I think Tony, the competitor, just said, look, I got to take one chance. I know the answer, but then I'm going to do what's best for the team.
Here's my perspective. Starting 2 weeks ago, Tony Romo was allowed to share first-team practice snaps with Dak Prescott. I was offended by that. That was outrageous to me because he did not deserve to share first-team snaps. And I'm not sure exactly the percentage of the split, but it sounded like it was 60 Dak, 40% Tony. In your time, would that be unusual to you?
Right. Well, that week that we're talking about, he did a lot of the 7-on-7. Last week was the first week he did some of the teams. So
I'm talking with the starters.
With the starters,
right.
with the starters, which he needs to get his timing back. I mean, look, this man hasn't played football since over a year. Yeah, over a year.
So Stephen Jones, whom I know pretty well, has become Jerry's conscience.
Yes.
It's the number one son. He's become his better judgment. He was the one who stopped Jerry on draft night from plunging on Johnny Manziel and said, probably should take this offensive line. This is a done deal over here. This guy's going to be a Pro Bowler for 15 years, whatever, Zach Martin. And so they take him. And in this case, it seems like Steven is the one who keeps saying, no, Jerry, no, because Jerry's heart and soul are with Romo. And to your point, Jason Garrett owes him. So you have an owner and a head coach, and you can also say the owner is the head coach. Yeah. But you have two powerful figures in the organization who are pro-Romo and have been looking for any excuse, any re-entry point for Tony Romo. So in this case, Steven is telling, this is Monday Morning Quarterback, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. So he's saying, well, Tony came to us last week and said, just give me the chance to compete for the job. This is pre-Pittsburgh. Right. And it was Steven, not Jerry, who stepped forward and said, you know what? Kid's done enough so far. Let's back that off a little bit. We'll give you some first-team snaps, but you won't actually get a 50-50 shot of winning the job in practice, which would be unheard of, winning back the job. So then Pittsburgh happened, and Tony was forced, even though he wasn't in pads, in his civvies, he was forced to stand there up close and personal and watch that kid do what he did in the last 42 seconds. And several reporters reported on a conversation they heard Tony having with Stephen Jones at the locker, in which he looked sideways at Dak Prescott and said, I'm just paraphrasing it, but it was, you have no idea how hard it is to do what he just did. Right. And that the quote from Tony was, he's the man. It was Tony's decision. It was his impetus. Jerry didn't tell him to make that statement that he read on Tuesday. Jason Garrett definitely did not prompt him to say that. He chose on his own, by himself, to go in on the off day, Tuesday, call the media together, and read the statement that he read. How can you not be touched by it? How can you not appreciate the guts that you said? He showed you probably more in that than he's shown you on the field a lot of times, no right? Question. Okay, so we all get that. But now Steven is going to have to hold off Jerry, who's been riding, as I call it, the Romo coaster, that the Cowboy Nation has been riding for all these many years, where if Dak does have a bad game against the Ravens, and as we keep talking about, that's possible. Yeah. This defense can make you look pretty bad. If he has a rookie game, it reopens the door for Jerry to ride the Romo coaster, as Cowboy Nation does, and say, well, wait a second, we have a Pro Bowl quarterback. Why not, now that we're 8-2, why wouldn't we throw Romo back in, and maybe he can take us to the next level? That's what's going to happen if they lose to Baltimore, and Steven is going to have to stop Jerry from pulling Dak back off the field.
It's interesting is the fact that there's Jason Garrett's void here. You can see that there's really not you're the head coach, you're standing in front of the team, and it's the guy that has to stand in front of the team that has to justify the change of the roster. Yep. And for me, Jason Garrett would have a hard time standing in front of his team and having credibility and saying, oh, by the way, we're going to put Tony back in there even though Dak won 8 games. I mean, he loses credibility. So for me, that would cause him to lose credibility. He could gain significant credibility by coming out and saying, look, here's what happened. I talked to Tony. Tony's not going to be the starter. Mm-hmm. Here, be proactive about it. Steven has really become an extension of Jason and Jerry because he's filled the void of the leadership. I mean, he's clearly filled the void of the leadership.
If I may, he's become the brains of the operation. He's the one I trust.
And the common sense. Yeah. And the common sense, which is clearly the case in this situation. It really is.
But, Michael, you know how hard it is for a guy at that position to come in this late in the season and play extremely well. See, they don't have, winning the division is not good enough. They have, for the first time, Skip, in a long time, okay, with the exception of maybe 2014, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contending winning team. Yeah. And to ask Tony to come in, Skip, he hadn't played real meaningful football in over a year. And I'm talking about, preseason, but he played 2 snaps, 3 snaps.
No, I'm talking about Thanksgiving last year.
Yes, so you're talking about a year.
They're getting ready to play a team this week that they allow 3.3 per rush. If you take out the one long run that Crowell had in the Cleveland game, the 85-yarder, they're down to 2-7. This is as good a defense as they're going to play probably for the rest of the year until they play Seattle in a playoff.
I said this is Dak's toughest test because he's not going to have Zeke riding shotgun.
But these are the kind of tests, and I think it has nothing to do with winning. These are the kind of tests. It's like the great sparring round that you have to have before you go for a fight. This is the kind of test he has to play against because it'll allow him, win or lose, to build what you need to do to win a playoff game. This is a playoff game for the Cowboys as well.
It is.
Because these are the reps you need. And I think Romo to go in there now wouldn't be worthwhile. It would be hurtful for him, and I think Tony did the right thing. And I think the only thing I would be critical of is Jason Garrett had an opportunity to be the leader of a team. He could take it a step forward and said, you know what, I know you're laughing at me, Skip, but to me, I see a void of lead. The head coach needs to be somewhat here.
Got to.
Hey, all three of you.
Because we all three of us are shaking
I
our
agree
heads
with
because
you. I
we
agree
agree, but that's not the scenario there. We all know that that's
Jason
not the
Garrett
situation.
is an 8-8 head coach. That's what he'd been until this kid fell out of heaven into their lap in the 4th round.
Right. Well, I think that's true. I think also Scott Linehan fell out of heaven.
And that helps too.
And that helps them
because
because
it's a good team.
it really is.
Yeah.
We all just look like bobbleheads shaking our heads at you. Michael will be back later in the show. Coming up, Phil Jackson responds to LeBron James. Chris Broussard joins us next to discuss. Directly to LeBron James after LeBron took issue with Phil's use of the word posse in describing LeBron's business partners. However, Phil did retweet this tweet from Clarence Gaines Jr. promoting the Posse Foundation, which is an urban academic foundation. Clarence Gaines Jr. works for the Knicks and is the son of legendary college basketball coach Clarence Big House Gaines. Chris Broussard is with us. What's your reaction to Phil's retweet?
Well, first of all, let me say this. I don't know if Clarence Gaines Jr. decided to tweet on his own or if Phil asked him, hey, would you tweet this out
What's
there?
your best guess?
I feel like Phil has some involvement.
Okay.
Again, don't know for sure.
I got you.
But I would speculate that Phil,
I would be with you on that.
kind of put that out there. And I wish that Clarence Gaines had not gotten involved at all, but especially if Phil asked him to do it.
Correct.
And here's why. Historically in this country, whenever blacks have questioned or challenged white authority, and that's what Phil is, great coach all time, president of a team, he's older. He spoke like an authority figure in his interview with Jackie McMullen of ESPN. Whenever blacks have challenged that, one of the main tactics that whites have used is to send out another black person to dismiss and disagree with the rebellious blacks and defend the position of the white authority.
Or I have a black friend.
Yeah.
I got
That's
black friends.
another
I got gay friends when they.
Yeah, that's
Go ahead.
another one. The movie Django. I don't know if you saw that. Samuel Jackson's
Yes.
character was
Stepper.
like that. Yeah, exactly. He was in that position.
He was.
Nat Turner, The Birth of a Nation movie.
Saw it.
Before he rebelled, the slave owners would have him go to plantations and preach one Bible verse. Slaves, be obedient to your masters. To quell.
Paid his owner for doing that,
Yes,
right?
exactly. So obviously those are much more horrible situations. But now Clarence Gaines is in that position of defending the white authority, especially as you brought up yesterday when Phil used the word posse in his book, The Last Season, 2004, in reference to LeBron and his guys. He used it in a negative way. They fetch cars, they fetch girls. And so that, that shows that Phil kind of knew what he was doing, and it was dismissive and disrespectful to LeBron and those guys. I would up to this, should have just and tweeted it if you put him up to it. Ideally, what Phil would have done is just admit, look, it was a poor choice of words.
Yes.
I didn't mean anything negative in any way, shape, or form. Nothing but respect for Maverick Carter, Rich Paul, and how they've capitalized on the opportunities LeBron James gave them. That's it. It would have been done. Now this thing goes on and on and on, and all types of racial connotations are brought in.
See, the thing for Phil is that he feels that because he has 11 championship rings, he's above reproach.
Yeah.
He feels that he can say anything, and you're supposed to take it at face value. But we're not talking about Phil Jackson, the coach. We're talking about Phil Jackson, the president of operations that's building a team. So in 2004, whatever definition you want to use, you're going to go the true definition about the sheriffs deputizing people and they're going to get the bad guy. If you want to use, but he started it in a negative, in a derogatory way, in a negative term. He said posse, meaning fetch cars, fetch women. That's what he said. That's what a posse meant to him. So how else was LeBron James supposed to take it? When you say that, when you preface it by saying posse, Guys that fetch cars, fetch girls. So now you've already defined what that word means to you. So how was LeBron supposed to take it? Here's the guy that LeBron has given $41 million through his foundation, going to send 1,100 kids to school. He just donated another $2.5 million to the Smithsonian for the Muhammad Ali exhibit. Rich Paul, who LeBron extended a hand. Rich Paul reached up, pulled himself up together with LeBron. Maverick Carter. All these guys have become successful. But Phil, I really want to stop using age as an excuse where, Phil is old school and that's the way it's said. No. It's time out for that.
Yeah.
Phil knows right from wrong.
He's positioned himself and presented himself as a progressive.
Exactly.
And he believes certain things.
Exactly. So I don't want to hear where, Phil is old school and born in 45 and he's 71. No. He knew he coined it in 2004 in his book as someone that's less than. They're hanger-oners. They offer the athlete nothing. That's the way he painted it. And in 2016, he still feels the exact same way. So don't tell me he's changed his way of thinking, because he hasn't.
Yep.
And he meant it in a derogatory way, because that's why he said it. He could have said, I take Stan Van Gundy. See, this is why Stan Van Gundy, me and Stan Van Gundy, we down. Because, when he's wrong, he'll step to the plate. He admit it. He said, I use that word. He said, but I've never used it when describing a white player. He also said, you know what? I know it's wrong, and I'm going to do better. That's all Phil had to say. LeBron, I apologize. Rich Paul, Maverick Carter, I apologize. Just say I apologize and move on. Don't try to and put this guy up to these shenanigans. The posse organization.
So you think he had him do it as well?
Absolutely. So hold on. Posse, in which Phil described, and the posse organization, which one of those in that organization fetching cars? Which one of those in that organization fetching girls? See, it makes no sense. Phil is another, he's a Chip Kelly guy. He walks into the room, he's automatically the smartest guy in the room. You can't fool him.
He's way beyond Chip Kelly in that role. I've been in the same room with both of them.
Yeah, but
Mount Phil,
the
Zen master.
And that's the thing, Skip. Because he feels he's so much, his knowledge is so much more vast than everybody in the room. He can fool people, and because I got 11 rings, who am I to question Phil Jackson? But I'm not questioning Phil Jackson, the coach. I'm questioning Phil Jackson, the man, and how he handled that situation.
I want to be clear about this. Yesterday, I told you how offended I was that Phil Jackson would dare to dismiss or marginalize or belittle LeBron's inner circle. It's obviously not it's an inner circle.
Right.
And I know Maverick, and I've been around Rich Paul, and Chris knows them very well. These are dynamos in their fields, especially Maverick. He's become a force in Hollywood and on Madison Avenue. So you can't go there, and whether you're 71 or out of touch or whatever, you just can't go there.
Exactly.
You need to, if not apologize, just explain your thinking a little better. He should have called the New York media together and explained himself a little better.
Right.
I shouldn't have said this, but I meant that. Whatever. Don't do this. Don't hide behind Clarence Gaines Jr. here. But I want to get straight as a white guy, because we had Rob Parker on yesterday, and he had no problem with the term posse as a racist term, but I want to be clear about this. I told you, I started covering the NBA in the late 70s and through the 80s. It somehow posse became the new hip, cool term for entourage. And I didn't hear one black player say he had a problem with that word, or I'd been the first to say, wow, okay, well then I have a problem with that word if you do. So is it now officially a racist term?
I don't know if it's necessarily racist, but it's derogatory.
Okay.
Because you're framing it. Phil framed the narrative of what the posse meant to him.
I got it. He defined it in his book.
Yep.
And then he used it again to diminish what the
they
inner
were
circle
able to
was.
accomplish.
Okay.
To your point, I agree with you. I wouldn't call it a racist term. It's certainly demeaning, derogatory now. But in the NBA now, don't use it.
Don't use it now.
If you're
I
a
got
coach
it.
or a white coach, general man,
I
do
asked,
not use it.
how did the Posse Foundation choose that term as their name? Because it's done a lot of great, but 7,000 public high school kids have gotten full scholarships through this foundation. But they chose, and it's black and white kids.
They probably viewed it as a hip way. I mean, I brought up the other day on the show. Remember Sir Mix-a-Lot song, My Posse's on Broadway. And I mean, so, yeah, it's been used in ways that aren't derogatory. And to some people, it's not viewed as that. But As you said, Phil has defined or did in 2004 what he meant by it.
Right.
And now the fact that he won't just come out, oh, I didn't mean anything by it. It was a poor choice of words. He won't come out and say that. That leads you to believe he's like battling.
Right.
Like he's defending his position, in my view, with that.
He's
tweet.
double. He's doubled
so
down.
I'm going to say it again. As a white guy, thanks in part to Phil Jackson, I think of this term now as a racist term, posse. I do, just because of what happened. I think that's what I'm hearing back. Is that
It's just posse to hang back with his posse. Well, Kevin Durant, when he used to come to the arena, his mom and his brother would always come with him. Are they a posse?
His posse.
So you have to be, if he hadn't framed it, that posse meant to him, hanger honors, fetch cars, fetch girls, maybe have accomplished some year-olds as you do as 31 and 35-year-olds. They have evolved. You have not. So I was upset because I thought it was derogatory. I thought it was demeaning. I thought it marginalized what LeBron and his corporation, which those guys are, have accomplished.
That's the thing. If there were guys just hanging with LeBron,
Right.
and going to parties and fetching girls and fetching cars, which some guys have, that black and white have players like
they do?
That's one thing. But he picked on the wrong guy because these guys are so accomplished. I mean, Maverick
Okay, is
Carter's
it
doing
possible
deals with
Phil's
NBC
just so
and
out of
Time
touch
Warner.
he doesn't know anything about Maverick and Rich?
He
and
had
Randy?
to. He knows. He certainly knows Rich Paul represents
He has
Ben
to.
Simmons, John
He has
Wall.
to.
You know, I mean, Rich represented Kevin Seraphim, who was one of their players last year. So no, there's no way.
He intentionally went after LeBron because he referenced the incident that happened. Jackie Butler didn't ask him anything about
Not
Thanksgiving.
specifically about that.
Right. She didn't ask him about that.
Well,
and
I
then
told you what he was doing. He was trying to say, these kids today, how can I succeed at my job when I'm having to deal?
But he
Look,
could-
Dwayne Wade and Pat Riley fell apart.
But here's the thing, though, Skip. He could have picked any other player. You can't pick that guy.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the way he's conducted himself off the court, he's untouchable because he's philanthropic. He gives more than what is required. He will go. He's very charitable with his time.
Well,
and with
beyond
his money.
that guy, it's that guy's inner circle.
Yeah.
I was at the Clippers game last night against Memphis, talking to people that work for different teams and in the league and stuff like that. And one thing they brought up is Phil has been able to get away with this in the past. I mean, he obviously got away with it in the 2004 book, which nobody really called him out
But
on
he's
the podcast.
describing a 19-year-old in the book.
Yeah. In the book,
It's
that's-
like his fault is not evolving. In 2004, when he's talking about a 19-year-old LeBron James, it's not out of the question that you would wonder how he's going to survive being a superstar in the NBA on that level.
No,
is that fair?
I think he went too far with the psychological damage.
But that's
this is going to
who
do
he
and all
is,
that
though.
stuff.
That he's the Zen master. He's
and that's a little
overanalyzing everything.
dismissive and
But did you think it was dismissive before this happened? If you had read that, you would have thought it's
what he said
dismissive
in
to question a
2004?
19-year-old superstar?
Yeah, hanging around with people, fetching cars, fetching girls.
I would argue that no one who read that book before this incident happened would have interpreted
Well,
that
the
way.
point I was going to say is, people went beyond last night that I was talking to, beyond just this LeBron thing.
Right.
When he talked about Kobe in his book before he came
Right.
back and coached Kobe the second time, people were like, he's been able to get away with dismissing players and
did.
disrespecting them, and
He
he
destroyed
got away
Kobe.
with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is the first time it looks like he's kind of being called on the carpet.
But he needs to stop assuming that because Chris Broussard has 3 or 4 of his good friends that hang around him, that they're up to no good. They're doing something no good. See, he's stereotyping everybody that has a group of 3 or 4 guys. That's a posse. If they're fetching cars, they're fetching girls. You don't know what that
He didn't
relationship
know what
is.
they were doing. Even
I think
in
it's less
2004.
about the term posse and more about the reference that he's making to his friends as being hanger-ons and not actually contributing to his career. It's less about the word and more about the intention that he used in it. Coming up, will Mayweather and McGregor ever fight? Skip, Shannon, and Chris debate that next.
Were you able to see the Conor McGregor fight?
No. You believe him?
He's piggybacking off my name.
I want the 100 million cash. The fight hit on the boxing news.
I'm not competing in boxing. I'm an elephant. Elephant is so large you don't even see it.
Come to say it to my face.
That was Conor and Floyd going at each other this week. Last night, Marc Gasol hit a three-pointer and did the Conor McGregor walk as a celebration. So Conor's antics have already reached the NBA. We're joined once again by Chris Broussard. Do you like that walk?
You were there. I was there. I saw him do it. He did it well, too. He did it well.
Do you think a McGregor-Mayweather fight will happen?
I don't think it'll happen. And the reason is Floyd's age. He's 39. He'll be 40 in February. And at some point, age is going to hit you. And God forbid it hits him during training or during a fight. If I was Floyd Mayweather or advising him, before I fought anybody, Conor McGregor, Manny Pacquiao, whoever, before I got back in the ring, I would have my reflexes and my hand speed tested. If it's not what it was 3 to 5 years ago, I'd be done. I wouldn't fight again because those punches that you slip by centimeters in the past, if your reflexes drop that much, now you're getting hit and you're in trouble. If they do fight, though, and this is where, Skip, I disagree wholeheartedly with you.
Oh, I'm shocked.
McGregor would not touch Floyd. If Floyd, is himself, he cannot touch him. It's one thing to look like you know how to box against wrestlers. And that's who he's up against, wrestlers.
He's boxing boxers.
And it's enough. They're not boxers.
Yes, they are.
At best, he is an amateur level boxer. And remember, also, it's one thing to watch out for the left hook when I also have to worry about you kicking me, spinning and throwing the elbow or forearm. I'm looking to tackle you and get you on the. I mean, if all I have to worry about are your hands, his hand speed is nowhere near Floyd Mayweather's, and he wouldn't touch him. He wouldn't touch Floyd.
He has a lightning left hand.
Against wrestlers.
He's left-handed and he's right-handed. He is ambidextrous and he can flat out rock you quickly. He and Nate Diaz, who is obviously 15 pounds more and
Nate normally fights at 155, Skip. So that's what they just fought at that catch weight. But Nate Diaz is fought most of his career.
170 pounds.
Yeah, but that was the catch weight they determined to fight at. But he normally
Conor
fights
was
at
at 155, so he took on a much bigger man twice. And they mostly just stood toe-to-toe, and they bare-knuckle fist fought. That's what they did. It was boxing at its sweetest.
But amateur boxers, it was slugging. If Shannon and I mean, God forbid, we get in the ring and that doesn't mean we're boxing. We're just in there slugging. That's what they were doing. They're not boxers.
Here's what's
is there a jab? Is there any jabbing?
Money Mayweather right now. He says that Conor is piggybacking off my name. It's really vice versa. Conor has taken over the world when it comes to whatever fighting you want to talk. UFC has taken over the world. He's taken over boxing. Now the worldwide phenomenon is Conor McGregor. And I thought it was significant that Marc Gasol last night hit the shot of the game and went into Conor's pre-fight strut. I thought it said a lot. It's even starting to infect the NBA. And I think it's killing Floyd that the world's attention is now focused on a much younger and a guy who's become the baddest man on the planet. He's the flip side of Floyd, who's the greatest defensive fighter ever. I don't like to watch him fight.
His fights are terrible.
Yeah, because I just put quotes around fights. They're not even fights. It's just jab and run, jab and run, jab and run. It's hard. Yeah, you can say, as Joy brought up, it's the sweet science. He's a sweet boxer. I get all that. But Conor McGregor is a crazy, crazy great.
Floyd has seen that before. Ricky Hatton, remember Ricky Hatton? Ricky Hatton was gonna bring the fight to Floyd. He throws a ton of punches.
You know what?
What happened?
That was some great white hype there. That's what that.
But he was a legitimately good fighter. He was.
But you know what the thing? Here's the thing. Conor McGregor wants $100 million. Well, if he wants $100 million, Floyd is not stepping in the ring for less than $250 million. We know that because he's not gonna fight on the same level, get the same money that Conor McGregor. Floyd has way more to lose than gain by taking the fight.
He has nothing to gain.
Because if he beats Conor McGregor, he's supposed to. He's a world-class fighter. But if he doesn't, see what I told you. So if I'm Floyd Mayweather, you want to look for $150 million. Call Leonard Ellaby. Leonard Ellaby, when he gets to $200 million, you call me.
Until then,
How about another $300 million? Would Floyd think about it?
oh yeah.
Well, overall, because he helps promote his own fights,
Right, yeah.
he would get over $250,000. There's no question.
Quarter
Quarter of a billion.
Yeah, $250,000.
Yeah.
We're talking about billions.
Yeah.
No question.
Well, then if I'm Floyd, I got, hey,
To me, for Floyd, the main question is physically, where am I at? Don't do the eye test, because you do have too much to lose to go in there,
Yes.
not quite what you used to be. And God forbid you lose to an amateur, a guy who doesn't even box. And like I said, that's the only chance McGregor will have. And I know Floyd doesn't knock anybody out. But Skip, he must hit enough of him. Manny Pacquiao,
Schooled him.
I thought that was going to be a good fight because I was
He
like,
had a
man,
torn rotator cuff.
look, I don't
He
want to
did.
hear
He
the
tore it.
excuses.
He had surgery.
In the
Don't
fourth-
tell me it's the
in
excuse.
the fourth
He had
round, he
surgery
injured
the
it.
next day.
What about the first 3 rounds? He said he re-injured it in the fourth.
But he tore it
What about the first
3 weeks
round?
before the fight, sparring.
what about De La Hoya? What
Yeah,
about Sugar
exactly.
Shane? What
All
about
of
Zab
them.
Judah?
What about Victor Ortiz, the biggest sucker puncher I've ever seen?
Well,
That's your only
you in
knockout
a-
since
you in a fight.
1999?
He's not going to knock me. But again, why wouldn't they bum rush him? Any of these
Because he's
fighters.
so incredibly skilled. He had the quickest head I've ever seen. And if he still does, maybe he, again,
But if
it's
I'm
going to go
not worried
12
about
rounds.
him hitting, you can hit me all you want, Floyd. It's not going to hurt me. I'm just going after you. I got 12 rounds to just corner you, get after
can't-
you, and do the best I can. Just
He's
make it
in
a brawl.
good shape. He's a marathon runner. That's what he is.
Chris, you heard people, a bee sting, oh, that ain't nothing but a little bee sting, but they ain't gonna go stick their head in a bee nest with him. You keep talking about Floyd, oh, Floyd can't punch, oh, he pillar, he couldn't knock
He's
me
a
out.
pillar fighter.
But
He
Hey,
is.
how many people
He can't
walk through
hurt
a punch?
anybody.
that's my. I look.
Walk
I
through
agree.
his punches.
He's not knocking anybody out. I'm with you on that. But again, he must have some degree of power because otherwise these guys would be willing to take 5 punches, and he only throws 2 at a time. Like for the last several years, that's a sign of an older fighter. You only throw 1 or 2 punches at a time. No
Pacquiao fought
combination.
12 rounds with one arm tied behind his back. And did you see his fights after the fight? He looked like he'd been to a picnic.
He's not going to knock you out. He's not going to knock you out. But Conor wouldn't touch him, and Floyd would work him over enough to win the fight. It wouldn't be a good fight, I don't think.
Like the great Bernie Mac said, I bet he leaves swole.
Yeah.
That's
You know
where
what?
I do this. I'm more with Skip on that. Floyd is not beating anybody up. He's not beating anybody
He's not
up.
capable.
Not
And
since he
he's almost
moved up
40
in
years
weight.
old. 40 years
Pat,
old?
He's not beating anybody up.
Patch
No.
over his eye, closed for the
No.
weekend.
Yeah.
Joey, stop.
You're living in
No.
the past.
He's not beating.
No.
Like when he was fighting at 130, 135.
All three of us
That's
agree,
130,
though.
135,
That's when you could knock
140,
people out.
147, 154.
Yep.
And still,
Justin
I would-
Juco.
I
Look him
would-
up.
what did you call
Justin
him?
Juco.
I would
Hard
like to
part?
see McGregor fight somebody else first, though.
He will, I'm sure he will. Chris, thanks for joining us. Coming up, where will Tony Romo be playing next season? Michael Lombardi joins the Romo night to be the Cowboys quarterback. Now reports are that Romo asked to compete with Dak for the starting job. Romo is expected to be the backup Sunday against the Ravens. Michael Lombardi is back with us. Michael, assuming that Romo's days in Dallas are numbered, what other team would be the best fit for him?
I think you got to build this backwards. I think you have to look at teams that have cap room, teams that are really a chance to win a Super Bowl. I don't think this is a trade that's going to be in the best interest of the Cowboys. I think this is going to be a trade that would be in the best interest of Tony Romo and the Cowboys. What Tony did the other day was, I thought, remarkable, but also he sent a message to the other teams that he wants to play. The fire burns within. It was an infomercial to a degree in the sense that, hey, I want to play. I'm a player. This is important to me. I'm a competitor. Like, I'm not even contemplating retirement. Important message if you're a general manager of another team. So I'm saying Arizona, if they decide that maybe Carson Palmer isn't the right team. Now, the problem becomes cap room and filling in. Is Denver a possibility? People suspect that, but I think Denver, they've cast their lot with Paxton Lynch. They got to go down that direction. They don't know what they have. Certainly, if they sign Romo, that would push the Lynch thing way back. And then I think you have to look at the San Franciscos. Could they entice him to go there? Is that a place? Could Chicago entice him to go there, depending on what they do with Jay Cutler? So I think those would be the options. The Jets would have to prove to me and to Tony Romo that they are a team that could compete at the highest level for a Super Bowl. I'm not sure they could actually do that.
I don't think the Broncos. See, everybody looks at the Broncos because they took Peyton Manning. But when Peyton Manning had one injury that put him out for the year, he didn't have a history of injuries. And so I think that's out of the question. But here's the Bears are interesting. Ryan Pace and Tony Romo were on Eastern Illinois together.
Right.
So they know they have a relationship. That would be. I don't think Jay Cutler's in Chicago. I think you and I both agree that Jay Cutler is not going to end up in Chicago. The Jets would be interesting. Are they just a quarterback away? 49ers maybe. All things being equal, I think the Bears I say Bears and Jets. I give them both 50-50 chance. I don't see him playing anywhere else.
Of all those teams you just talked about, I don't think Tony would want to go to the Bears. I'm not sure he would want to go to the Jets.
Nope.
But he definitely would want to go to Denver.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So to me, I don't understand why you wouldn't see how John Elway would sit back and say, wait a second. I'm not saying Tony Romo is Peyton Manning, but why wouldn't John, albeit with Paxton Lynch there? I get it, but he plunged with Peyton when everybody wrote off Peyton. And the Indianapolis team doctors said after 3 neck, I don't know if you want to call them surgeries or procedures. I call them surgeries. But 3 of them, the Indy doctors said, no, he just can't last. Peyton had some independent doctors saying, with his work ethic, he can figure this out and regenerate his tricep and tricep over here and get some motion going. And what did he do? He goes in that first year and led the NFL in QBR. He was the MVP the second year. I thought he should have been the first year, but Adrian Peterson had the big bounce back after the ACL. In the third year, he's 5th in QBR. And the 4th year, he won a Super Bowl. And John knows that he took a guy who can play in Peyton, a level probably above Tony Romo, and look what he pulled off. Why wouldn't he think the same thing with Tony Romo? Why wouldn't he max his chances? Again, the offensive line's leaky right now, but he could work to shore it up for Tony Romo.
Injury history.
Okay, but Peyton had that sort of immediate injury history that was terrible. Where a lot of doctors are saying he's damaged goods.
Well, I think Peyton Manning got John Elway. That was his Reggie White signing. That was the signature to allow him to build his team, and now he can back everybody off, saying, "I know what I'm doing. I've won a Super Bowl." I think the team we might have missed is Houston. Brock Osweiler. I know he can rob a bank better than anybody, and he certainly has, without getting caught for it. I mean, 99 yards passing and wins the game. But if you're the Houston Texans, you have to really have
okay. But would they swallow all their pride, all that cap money?
Well, you're either going to swallow your pride or you're going to get fired. I mean, you got a choice to make here. I mean, Brock Osweiler's, you're going to have to bite the bullet here. You put Tony Romo around some of the skill they have in Houston, it would work. Yeah. I think Tony will want to go to a team that has an offensive head coach, or at least a head coach that he can identify with, that he can have a meeting with. The Bears seem interesting, but until their tackle situations, if I were Tony, I would be concerned about their tackle.
Right.
How much you can't play general manager. You got to go to the best team. Arizona, to me, would be an appealing team for him.
That would work, too, yeah.
You got great skilled players. You got a head coach that would understand how to handle Tony Romo. But for me, Houston would be a team that they're going to have that come-to-Jesus meeting sooner than later. And they're going to have to say, you know what, we blew it with Brock Osweiler. Because this isn't like playing a rookie and you hope Brock Osweiler gets better. He is what he is. He threw for 99 yards. I mean, look, I know the Texans probably sit there and say, well, we'll beat everybody in the South and we'll win our division. That's not going to get you to the playoffs. And if you're Bob McNair and you really want to go somewhere and you're close with Jerry Jones, Tony's going to drive this trade, and I think Jerry's going to accommodate him because Jerry gets the cap room, which is more valuable than a 4th-round pick or a 3rd-round pick that he could get.
So would you sum it up by saying Tony Romo's trade value is still high?
I think his value would be not as high because of the contract and because of the injury uncertainty and because he controls it. I think this is a situation where the player does have some control because he could easily say, look, I'm not going to the Jets. Jerry, don't even try to. So that makes Jerry not able to trade him anywhere. And we talked about this in an earlier segment. This is family. I mean, this is going to be a painful goodbye for Jerry, Steven, and Jason. So they're going to want to make him happy. They're going to want to make him feel like they've done something for him. And if he tells them, I don't want to go here, there, or there, they're not going to do it. And so they're going to have to back away from the pick. So when you're moving away from what you think you can get,
you're just basically giving them away.
Would the team that wants Romo ask Tony to renegotiate his deal down?
I would think they would, and I would think they would want to have a meeting with him, and I think they'd want to make sure. I know I would. If I was the general manager of the team, I would want to meet with Tony. I'd want to say, okay, here, I would want to lay out the vision of the organization, why he's so important, but I also would want to hear what he feels like he can bring to the organization. And I think those are that meeting is going to determine whether you want to move forward. And you can't really decide that meeting unless you have one of those. You just can't hope for it, because you never confuse hope for a plan. You got to have a plan for Tony Romo at his age. You just can't go in there and say, oh, we're going to give it a shot like the Jets did with Brett Favre, and that didn't work out. So I think you got to be more detailed conscious. And Jerry, I do believe, even though he's one of the great horse traders of all time and he can talk the cat off the top of a fish truck, I do believe he will acquiesce to Tony and do what's in his best interest.
Oh, that's going to be a sad breakup.
Yep.
That's not going to be comfortable. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. And be sure to check out Michael's podcast, Making Me Smarter. Coming up, the Cowboys go in for 9 in a row against Sunday against the Ravens. We'll get Colin Cowherd's pick next. Host the 5-4 Ravens on Sunday. The Cowboys are favored by a touchdown. We're joined by Colin Cowherd. The Herd starts in a few minutes. Welcome, Colin.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am great.
All right.
Good NFL weekend. A lot of stuff developing.
There's only one game that really matters. Right?
To you,
Yeah, exactly.
to those Ram fans, they get Goff, finally.
I like that. Dolphins fan. Awesome. Start Goff. Will the Cowboys cover?
Cowboys will win, they won't cover, off a very emotional game. Baltimore, the AFC looked like junk for about 8 weeks. Now Tennessee's pretty good. Now Miami's pretty good. The Raiders are interesting, and Baltimore, under the radar. Who has played New England through the years toughest?
No doubt.
Baltimore.
Yep.
The one team that's gone into Foxborough.
I agree.
And twice had games stripped from them. Baltimore will be a tough out for Dallas. But you know what? It's a good game because it's a little bit like Philadelphia with a veteran quarterback. Philadelphia, people forget, Dak struggled a little early. Bounced back
a little.
a
I mean,
lot.
For 3.5 quarters. Yeah.
So I think this is going to be Baltimore uglies up the game. And Dallas isn't ugly. Dallas is pretty. Dallas is exciting. Baltimore is the antithesis of Dallas, and I think they'll just make it a 21-17. Dallas clearly better, but awful to watch.
Colin must have watched our show this morning.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
It's
Thank
not
you.
The thing about Dallas is they're eye candy. They've always been eye candy. This year they're eye candy and good.
Yeah.
Dak isn't eye candy, though. He's spectacularly unspectacular to me.
I think he's fun to watch. Like I
The
like.
guy just threw for 300 yards.
I like watching Dallas
But
play.
this is the guy that's fun to watch, this guy.
Well, you won't see any of that this week.
Who's that? What's that?
Zeke eating.
Oh, he's not going to.
I think the Ravens' defense is going to be doing that against him,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
So you like Dallas to win?
Barely. I got 20-17. You said 21-17.
Yeah.
They're
I
not
got
going
Ravens
to cover.
22-20. Tucker on the late field goal.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh, what does that mean for Romo?
Nothing.
That's over.
You know what?
It is.
That defense is going to get tuckered out, that Ravens defense, in the fourth quarter. That's what's going to happen.
Romo sounded like a guy at the press conference, resigned to the fact that he knows his career is over in Dallas. It's on. You know, he's about to get on his horse at the end of the season and he's going to ride to someone else's Sunday.
I'll tell you what, though. I was at the gym yesterday, putting in my usual skip workout. Shannon workout. Guy comes
No
up to
skip
me.
workout.
Guy comes up to me and says, I was never a Romo fan. He did this. He goes, I'm all in on Romo. He goes, in a world of me, the whole world's about me. He
I
goes,
think he won a lot of fans.
I do too.
But it was only after he couldn't get that audition to challenge Dak in practice did he become me. Because before then he wasn't me. He was like, I want to lead this team.
But you can't condemn him for
No,
that.
yeah, he's a competitor.
Well, I can't praise him then. If I can't condemn him for wanting the job back after Dak had clearly won it, I can't give him praise because he finally acquiesced.
Well, then he just sort of accept it.
Yes, he should. Well, that's,
Did he have a choice in the matter?
well, that he still was man enough. Case Keenum yesterday goes to the microphone and is like, I'm the captain of this team. The guy's got 9 TDs and 11 picks. Case Keenum could have taken one for the team. At his press conference yesterday, it was like, I'm still the captain of this team. That's not taking one for the team. Tony Romo is a borderline Hall of Famer. Took one for the team
I don't even know
yesterday.
if he's borderline Hall of Fame. I can't go that far.
Is Matt Hasselbeck Hall of Fame?
No.
But is he borderline?
No.
Matt Hasselbeck?
No.
Thank you. We finally agreed on
What
something.
crazy loony show did I end up on? I don't know.
Well, I don't know what you.
That was
First of all,
amazing.
if Kurt
Warner?
is having to wait 2-3 times, he went to 3 Super Bowls. He won 2 Super Bowls. He won 2 MVPs, a Super Bowl MVP. Got the greatest passing day in Super Bowl history, over 400 yards. And he's having to wait. And you think Matt Hasselbeck is getting in?
I said Matt Hasselbeck and Tony are borderline.
If they got a key.
Say it one more time.
No.
Thanks so
Wait,
much
is
for
Shannon
joining
Sharp a
us.
Hall of Famer?
Yes.
We'll catch you on there in just a few minutes. Time for our final debate of the day. The 3-6 Panthers host the 4-5 Saints tonight. The Saints beat the Panthers in a shootout in week 6. Skip, who's going to win this game?
Have any two opponents in NFL history had to climb back up off the mat and play each other after 2 more devastating collapses at home? Were they? Wow.
No.
I still think that at home, Cam can get his team to climb back up off the mat a little faster. I agree with you, your point about at New Orleans, it was 41-38. New Orleans still hanging in that division race at 4-5, but I think Cam has too much pride on Thursday night national stage. I think he'll rise and shine tonight, and I think they'll win almost a shootout. I'll go 33-30 home team tonight.
Saints are second in scoring in offense, first in total offense, first in pass offense, and the Carolina Panthers D is not what it was. This is not the D that we remember. I got it close. I got it 27-24 New Orleans.
Do you really?
I do. I like what I see from their offense. And normally when you go into Carolina with that defense with Kuechly and Thomas Jones and those guys, they put pressure on you. But to give up a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter to Kansas City, whose offense is not nearly as dangerous as this, I got to take New Orleans on the road.
Don't trust New Orleans on the road. Just don't.
I trust Drew Brees.
Okay.
We're going to win.
What happened to Cam Newton? Where is he? What happened?
We want to bet a
We'll see
duel on it?
tonight. We're off tomorrow.
No.
So we'll be back on Monday
6-4
morning at 9:30 Eastern. Right now, Colin Cowherd tells you why Tony Romo might be the